Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out to this special meeting for City Island Rising for emergency response. This is a great turnout. I think it may be because we've had 7 straight weekends of rain and everyone's been getting partial flooding in their houses. However, I do appreciate everyone coming out. My name is John Doyle. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the president of our board. We're also joined today by David Diaz, who's back there in the suit. He's on our board as well. This is a special meeting which we convened, which we appreciate everyone turning out for, to deal with emergency response and also to address the issues that so many of us have with how we can be better prepared in a storm. And I know, I'm looking around the room here, I know there are a lot of longtime City Islanders, and everyone remembers what it was like during Sandy and how, you know, we weren't sure what to do, and this is a Zone 1 evacuation area, and I'm not snitching on anyone individually, but I know not many of us evacuated. So much so that the Times sent out a reporter to cover the people drinking in the bars here, but not here nor there at the time. But we're hoping tonight, and just so everyone knows, we were giving out agendas. I know most of them already are gone. We were also giving out a sign-in sheet. Is that still going around? Okay, let's just make sure everybody signs in. That's how we keep in touch with you. That's how we grow our lists. And then when you have questions, we can look back at the video because we are broadcasting this, and we can make sure that those questions are answered. So when you get the mic, because the mic will be going around, just identify yourself if you have a question so we can get back to you if your question isn't totally answered. So again, I want to thank everyone for coming out here. We have a lot of experts who are coming tonight to address emergency preparedness. And we definitely want to give them as much time as possible. So we're going to call up our first guest. We have at least 4 guests today, and we want to appreciate all of them because they all come at emergency preparedness from a different angle. And there are a lot of services, as we started to look into this on behalf of the community, that there are a lot of services that are available to us. So we want to give them enough time to present what their agency offers us. And then at the end, we'll have a discussion of next steps. We'll take down everybody's suggestions. Everyone will get a turn to speak. And then if anyone's watching online, they can either post a comment or email us at cityislandrising@gmail.com or go to our website, cityislandrising.org. And they can send their suggestions. We'll bring everything together and we'll do a report out at our next meeting. So without further ado, our first guest, since he was the first to RSVP, is Amjad Mujahideen from the Mujahideen. I'm going to learn how to say that properly, and my apologies. Yes, from the New York City Department of Health. So let's give him a round of applause. Let him go first.
Thank you, everybody. Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to be here. I have to admit that I'm a long-time City Island fan. I'm a fisherman as well, so this is like a second home to me. I used to work on the boats over here as a deckhand, so got a lot of history on City Island, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be here in this capacity to assist you all in understanding what the city has to offer in this regard. One of the things I like to start out with before we get to the presentation is talk a little bit about my agency, right? So my official title is Bronx Neighborhood and Veterans Services Health Promoter, okay? And also do emergency preparedness for the Bronx in regards to community resiliency initiatives. And in that being, the COAD work that we're going to talk about is one of the main ones. Before blackouts from West Nile virus and other health emergencies in the past. And we wanted to start this pilot project. And we were successful in standing up the first COAD in the Bronx ever, and that's called SBIN. That acronym is South Bronx Emergency Network. And since we were successful in getting off the ground before COVID, that gave us a platform in order to organize and collaborate with all the stakeholders in the community to be able to distribute PPE, food supplies, emergency emergency medicine, help first responders get in contact with people who needed help, who were homebound. And during COVID, we was able to successfully develop a relationship with the New York Yankees to be the first distribution point for the first phase of vaccines in the Bronx. So I just wanted to share that with you to let you know how ordinary New Yorkers and Bronxites like ourselves can make a big impact in improving health and wellness. Now, excuse me, the flyer that I'm passing around talks about the free resources and services that's offered at the East Tremont Health Action Center. And that's located at 1826 Arthur Avenue. It's open to the public Monday through Friday from 9 to 4. On a daily basis, if you should need, if you're in the area, you're welcome to come and get free PPE supplies. And we have also a lot of free services which the flyer will entail. I also wanted to share with you that we have a training series for Bronx-based community partners. And this is grant writing, free grant writing workshops. If you have a small business, nonprofit, and you would like help in getting funding for your organization, this flyer will give you information and on its way. Okay? Last but not least, before we get into the presentation, I would like to share with you all. I don't have enough of these slides, but feel free to take a picture of it, share it on your social media. We have tomorrow, actually, the wellness. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't want you to hate now.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We have tomorrow the Wellness Wonderland Annual Fall Festival. And that's a free health and wellness resource fair that will take place at East Tremont Park, also known as Walter Godwin Park.
Does anybody know?
Yeah, not really. So I give both just for the record. And that's located at East 176th Street and Arthur Avenue in the Bronx. And that'll be from 12 to 4 p.m. So everyone is welcome. We plan to have food, music, and a lot of different health and wellness activities and free health screenings of variety. So feel free to pass this around. You can take a picture. If you have time, you can make more copies. English on one side, and I think Spanish on the other.
And we'll make a copy of all this and put it on our website tomorrow and on our social media. So if you don't get it tonight, we will have more for you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so we're going to get started with the actual presentation. Okay, with COAD, the PowerPoint. Everybody has one? Okay, so I won't go into my normal spiel when we talk about COADs because many of you are seasoned veterans dealing with weather crisis here on the island. But what I would like to share with you is the value of being part of a COAD or forming one and how it can benefit the community. One, by developing, new network of friends and community neighbors that you can work with to make sure that everybody stays safe and get the necessary resources that you need to get through that crisis. So, just to give you some context and background, during March 2015, there was the launch of the #Not62 campaign for a healthier Bronx to address factors that drive poor health outcomes. During the summer of 2015, as I was sharing with you, the Legionnaires' disease outbreak in the Bronx. The fall of 2015, we had the launch of Community Health Resiliency Recovery Initiative, which led into our work in dealing with COADs. And from 2016 to 2018, our outreach and support in several other disasters and preparedness projects in the Bronx. One example is called Be a Buddy. And that means, working with your neighbors to deal with, local emergencies. And in the summer 19, partnership with Bronx Community Board 3 to launch the South Bronx Emergency Network, the Bronx first COAD. Now, this second sheet was, I thought we had a PowerPoint capability. And just give the examples, the one that has the cards. Okay, so we're going to pass that one because that was connected to videos to show different weather-related disasters, and we can do that at another time. But the next page, page 4. Okay, the Bronx is one of the most vulnerable areas in New York City with the highest number of residents most susceptible to all type of disasters. So being that that's the case, the health department wanted to address this by focusing on community resiliency, which was the start of the COAD work. Next slide. People with the most vulnerable characteristics across all disasters tend to be concentrated in neighborhoods with historical, social inequities, and the poorest health outcomes. Now, being that we're here, those numbers and demographics will change, quite a bit. However, you have, you're still affected in terms of access to resources and services, especially during weather-related incidents. Slide 6. Most of the most vulnerable in New York City, and this is this slide here. Most of vulnerable, who are the most vulnerable in New York City? Every person has vulnerability characteristics that influence their ability to function during disaster. Now that, from different perspectives, most characteristics are 5%, some characteristics at 45%, and few characteristics at 50%. What is your health capabilities? What are your disabilities to be mobile, to get out of harm's way? This is some of the things that we look at and we want to address. And with the COAD, we can address these different areas to help those who are less fortunate and being able to get out of harm's way during the crisis. Slide 7, page 7. The vulnerability characteristics. A person's ability to survive and recover from a disaster depends on several factors. How well people function in these categories affects their vulnerability. Transportation, self-care, and communications. And these are the things, for example, wheelchair, mobility, dementia, homebound individuals, self-care, wheelchair, mobility, and also communication difficulties. A person doesn't speak English, a person might be, deaf, sign language, and may not have the proper communications equipment to let people know that they're in trouble and need assistance. Slide 8. And the reason why we're talking about these different things is because the COAD, one of the things we focus on is the health and wellness of people in the community. And a lot of people don't understand the various characteristics or point of access that a person may have in order to get out of harm's way during a disaster or weather-related crisis. Okay, slide 8, vulnerability characteristics. In addition to the ability to understand emergency communications and take care of oneself, 2 or other factors increase one's risk in disasters and emergencies. Exposure. People with high exposure are more at risk. Susceptibility. A person's predisposition to being harmed. And slide 9, community health resiliency as a solution. Adopt a community health resiliency model so that communities can use their assets to strengthen public health and the healthcare system to improve the physical, behavioral, social health to withstand adapt to, and recover from adversities. The goal is to apply a health equity framework to resiliency and recovery by considering the social determinants of health and neighborhood strengths and expertise. Slide 10. Community health resiliency as a solution focuses on addressing health inequities in communities to reduce the negative impacts of disasters. Resources are limited during an actual emergency. Most communities lack critical resources needed to prepare, respond, and recover from a disaster. Also, the need to close the gap between resiliency and recovery from emergencies and the potential loss of life. Now, I'm not going to read all of this, but I just want to share with you, and you can read this at your leisure, because I'm going to be short on time. Since our first COAD that we stood up in the South Bronx, we've been successful in standing up 3 other COADs in the Bronx. To date, we have Northeast Bronx that covers Castle Hill, Soundview, and we have Mid-Bronx, excuse me, by Gun Hill, where we're working with an organization called iRise. And they focus on working with their after school programs for high schools and junior high school students. So we're working with them with our partners with FEMA to provide the necessary training where they can be youth preparedness ambassadors in the community. So they will work with their families as well as community members to help people to become more educated on these issues and to be able to get us and to spread the word through the community about emergency preparedness. Yes, sir.
Since I moved here, what does COAD stand for?
Okay. COAD stands for, it's an acronym, Community Organizations Active During Disasters. Okay? So even though it's active during disasters, that's not the only time we come together. We come together on a regular basis. Some COADs come together on a monthly basis or a bi-quarterly basis to learn different skills, techniques, where they can improve their capabilities of being prepared for an emergency. Learning how to put together a go bag, learning emergency communications, how to use a ham radio, how to communicate with first responders. Because in some cases, first responders might not get to you in time, as you may know, and you will be that first responder to direct resources and services to areas that are in need. So these are the type of skills that you will learn, and also will do what is called table exercises so that you can practice those skills on different scenarios that affect you and your community. Are there any other questions? Yes.
When there's a extreme weather alarm, sometimes on cell phones. So do you also have communication through cell phones?
So yes, we do. We work with, you ever heard of the app called Zello? Z-E-L-L? No, not that one. No, not that one. So Zello is a communication app that's free download on your phone where it turns your cell phone into a walkie-talkie, basically. And it gives you coverage. So say, for instance, cell towers go down, you still can use your phone as a radio to communicate and let people know what's happening. Now, currently, we do have emergency communications using Zello because it's very user-friendly. And there's a communication network right now that we work with called New York North. And that's a collaboration of different COADs throughout New York City and upstate New York, where they have regular drills and communication meetups where they do training exercises, say for instance at a parade, to make sure that if anything goes down, people can communicate where there might be a problem. Somebody might be sick at 47th Street and 8th, and they need assistance. So doing those training exercises, you can help direct first responders to get that person the help that they need. And this is good training for average people to learn how to use radios during, an emergency. Yes, sir.
So does it work on a different system other than the satellite, the towers?
So they have, excuse me, I forget the exact frequency, but it's the basic radio frequency that you still can use your cell phone in case of emergency.
So you could program a scanner onto that same frequency?
They also have app scanners that you can add to that as well. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Yes, I'm sorry. I forgot you all were back here. Please forgive me.
Comment about Celo, it was very effective in Hurricane Maria.
Say that again?
It was very, very effective. Hi, sorry. I went through Hurricane Maria. I lived in Puerto Rico, and that's how people actually communicated one with another with the app. So I highly recommend you download it. But yes, and people didn't have electricity. My mom didn't have electricity for 3 months. So if you really do want not that to happen and not know where your loved ones, download that app. My question is, I don't have the PowerPoint, but part of the plan, does it actually factor in pets and animals?
Yes, it does. And yes, it does. So the emergency plan is something that we also work on as a COAD with the guidance and expertise of NYC, New York City Emergency Management. So once you decided, hey, this is a valuable thing to have, one of the things we do, we connect you with our sister agencies in the city for training opportunities that we can have to deal with how do you prepare your family for emergency? How do you prepare your pets? Financial emergency preparedness is another one. And FEMA talks about that as well in their trainings as well. So there's a broad course of trainings that we can tap into to help to improve the health and wellness of the community and the COAD members during, a crisis. Now the COAD membership is a cross-section of regular residents, professionals, business owners, city agencies, hospitals, churches, right? Your local grocery store, restaurants, all can play a part in the COAD. No one has to be excluded. We all in this together. And especially since you have a tight-knit community here, everyone has a valuable place in the COAD. Any other questions?
In terms of next steps with you, if we want to pursue the COAD options, what are our next steps to continue?
So we can start, once you have officially said, hey, this is what we want to do, we can start the basic training introduction series to get the ball rolling, okay? Now you decide, there's one other thing I want to share. So you have COADs and you got the CERT team. The CERT team is directly under New York City Emergency Management. That's where they get their direction. And my good friend here will talk more about that. The COAD is started by the community, run by the community, and led by the community. You decide what direction the COAD takes form based upon your needs in this community. You with me? Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. And then, good thing he didn't steal your thunder too much. We have Denise Esposito, who's with the New York City Department of Emergency Management. She will also speak and give us an update on what they've been up to. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. No problem.
Thank you all for coming tonight and giving us this opportunity to talk about the program. Thank you, Peter, for joining me. We usually do an orientation and kind of go over all about the program. I'm not going to do that tonight because that would be over an hour. So I just kind of have a few bullet points I want to go through. But all of our CERT teams, so I'm Denise Esposito I work with emergency management, and I do recruitment and retention. So all of our CERT teams are decided through their community board. So where you live is where you will work as a CERT volunteer. So being community board 10, it basically is the same thing as a CERT district. So it's CERT district 10. Oh, good question. Just like you asked about COAD, what does that mean? CERT is CERT, stands for Community Emergency Response Teams. So it's volunteers in the community that are able to help out with preparedness, response, and recovery. I was just going to actually get that, but they educate their communities about preparedness. They also deploy to assist first responders, and they engage in local recovery efforts. How do CERT members help NYCM and first responders in most of their communities? The biggest thing that they do is emergency preparedness education, and I have a bunch of these books in the back. We have several guides that we use through the Ready New York program. The biggest one we use is the My Emergency Plan. I have a bunch of these if anybody wants to grab one in the back. And basically, they're just talking about how to make a plan, make a go bag, and how to get informed. So this book tells you all about why you need a plan for you and your family, and how you should practice that plan to make sure there's no issues with it, and also how to make a go bag, which you should leave by the door and have a few items in it. There's a really great page in this book that shows you what should go into that go bag. A couple of items like, some important documents, make some copies of them, put them in there. If you take medications, you're going to want to have a few of them in there because you don't know when you're going back to your home. If you have a fire or a building collapse, you get evacuated, you're going to need a few things with you. Maybe some water, a couple of snacks. If you have a pet, you might want to have a pet go bag because they may have allergies or take medication as well. Or they have a favorite blanket, but you want them to be comforted during that time. Also in here, you can write down the names and numbers of your family members and your emergency contacts, because we know that we use our phones and we just press, the name of someone on it and it calls them, but really we may not know their actual phone number. And I know that I would not remember my kids' numbers if I, had to, especially in an emergency. So it's a really good idea to put that down in your book, and then also put the book into your go bag and leave that by the door. And when you're practicing your plan, grab that and go. And also in this book is how to get informed. So there's a lot of information in the back, a lot of websites, especially for vulnerable populations, for disabled, for resources that are available to them they may not know about. So this is like one of the main things that CERT members do, is that they go out and they do tabling events where they're setting up and handing out this literature and talking to people about why they need to have a plan. Because the more prepared you are, the better it is for first responders, the better it is for your family and your community. Just quickly, so the training. We do an 11-session training. It's a hybrid training, so 4 of the classes are virtual on Zoom, or I think we're using actually Microsoft Teams, and then 7 of them are in person. And that provides us the opportunity to be able to do some exercises, and you're able to practice that. And the 11th session is in person, and you come into our office and you do like a disaster simulation. It's a really fun exercise, and you learn, and you use all the skills that you have learned in the classes. We offer 3 cycles a year for CERT training. There is one, I think, in like February into March. We do another one in the spring, like May into June, and another one in October into November, so a fall training. And we offer 2 sessions each cycle. So we offer a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday. It's your option which one you want to choose, whatever works better with your schedule. You'll check it out, review it, see if you have any conflicts. If you do, you can always do a makeup in the other session, but you just work it out with the liaisons. And all of our instructors are FDNY Fire, FDNY EMS, NYPD, and NYC staff. And all of the training and the uniform that you see Peter wearing here.
With the model too. Come on over here and come out so
I see you wore green.
we didn't plan this. We not design coordinates.
So we have the polo shirt, we have a windbreaker that is basically the same color, same branding, the lanyard, you get your ID. You'll have 2 IDs during your membership. The first one is your probationary ID, it's good for 6 months. As long as you're active with the program, then you'll be getting your next permanent ID, which has a picture on it. You get the baseball cap, helmet, backpack, and then you get a backpack, which is your response bag, and that has a few items in it, like a first aid kit, I think some goggles. You have, I think there's a little rain jacket in there, some work gloves, a couple of things you might need if you do, have to respond to an emergency. Thank you, Peter. So everything that you get is free from the program, but it does cost the city money to train you. So we just ask for 1 year of service. We have many members that have stayed with the program a lot longer, and they go through the whole gamut of all the leadership positions, all the training, extra training we offer. And this is our 20th year, so we just had our 20th anniversary. We started in 2003, and we have a lot of people that stay with the program. Just a little bit about the team. So once you finish up with the training, you'll be joining your CERT team. And your team is basically your division. So there's a few community boards, a few districts under it. And there's a division chief that sort of runs the meeting and manages the team. There's a district leader, so that's sort of broken down by the community boards. We have borough coordinators that are the ones that we are most in touch with, and we talk with them every 2 weeks, and they go down and into these meetings, and they talk to their division chiefs and bring them updates, and then find out any issues or concerns that are coming from the community and bring that to NYCM. So it's a really great relationship, so that if you have any issues in your community, you can bring it right through the channel to us. Just a little bit about the deployments that we've done. They assist first responders, do a lot of crowd control, line management. They do vehicular and pedestrian traffic management at parades, religious processions, large events like marathons, bike tours. They help out at service centers, so if there was a large emergency, let's say there was a building collapse, and people had to evacuate from their homes, you may have a lot of different services available at that service center, like American Red Cross. People need sheltering, maybe they need to do damage assessments, so they have someone there to help them with that. So CERT members do registration at those, and they do help out with assisting people, directing them around the room for what services they might need. They also help out in recovery, doing distribution. Let's say there's a power outage, they may set up a quick table and start handing out water, food. They can hand out flashlights, batteries, whatever is needed during that emergency. During COVID, they were actually very active, handing out PPE. So they were handing out hand sanitizer, COVID tests, masks, all kinds of things. Some of our other things that we do is kind of on a regular basis. If we know that there's going to be a heavy rain event, we may have them do some catch basin clearing. We do that with the DEP. So they'll just be getting a rake, gloves, garbage bag, clearing off the top of the grate. We would never have them do anything that's dangerous, so we won't have them lift the grate. If the issue is underneath, we'll have them just reach out to 311 and contact DEP, and they'll come around with their truck. They also do flyer distribution, canvassing, excuse me. For flyer distribution, if you have an area where people are not, the predominant language is not English, we need to get that information to these people as well. So we might, translate that information into their language, put it into a flyer, and quickly have our CERT members go around and start handing that out, because we want to make sure that everybody's getting the same information. One really big thing is that CERT members never self-deploy. They do not just see an emergency, throw on their shirt, and go out like Superman. They're not doing that. If there is not a role for them on scene, we're not going to deploy them. So it has to be something where there is a role for them, maybe, crowd control, or they're doing some type of traffic management, or there's some type of role that they're doing that fits into what they've been trained to do. We'll have them go out to that scene, but they'll know before they go and before they register to do that. So they'll have all the information on where they're going, how long they're going to be there, who the point of contact's going to be, when they get on scene, what they're going to be doing. So they'll have all that information. Another thing about CERT is that we want to make sure that we're doing recognition. We're recognizing our volunteers for all the time that they're giving to the program. So we do several different awards throughout the year. We do them at graduations. We also do give out challenge coins, certificates. Sometimes we do spotlights in our newsletter that we do each week. We want to make sure that we are highlighting all of the stuff that the CERT members are doing, especially because they're not getting paid. They're doing this, the goodness of their heart. So as I mentioned before, the team is the division chief, a district leader. We also have a Ready New York liaison, which is the person they speak with that is going to get all this literature for them if they want to set up a table. Let's say if they live in a high-rise and they want to do, a tabling event for their building, then they'll reach out to their Ready New York liaison, get the materials sent to them, and start handing it out and start educating people on what to do, how to make a plan, make a go bag, and get informed. Another thing is we have a lot of other training, so it's not just what you learn in that basic training, which in basic training it's fire safety, light search and rescue. They're learning a little bit about radio basics. We have a radio program they can be part of. They're learning about first aid, how to treat burns, all kinds of different information that can be helpful even for their own family. So we have other advanced trainings that they can do after they graduate. So I'd say for City Island, I did see, and I was looking at your page for City Island Rising, it seems like there would be a need out here for traffic management. I do see that transportation was a bit of an issue. I know flooding was a little bit of an issue. You guys do community cleanups, which is great. CERT members get involved in that. Buddy checks, which is an awesome thing and was really, really helpful during COVID. We had CERT members go out and do buddy checks in their neighborhood, checking on vulnerable populations, and we did find issues. So it was really great that they went out and did that. We do Narcan training, CPR, and just, I think, the relationship building that you're doing with having nice, open line of communication with us is just a great way to get, things done and also to help prepare your communities. I'd say the next steps as far as CERT, I do have the card in the back that everybody can grab. This is just about how to apply. I also have a QR code there if you wanted to scan it with your phone. It takes you right to the application. And applying to the program is not a guarantee to get in. It's also not a commitment that you're joining. It's a way for you to get more information. So if you just apply to the program, that means you're on our distribution list, and you'll now start getting emails from us about when the next orientation session is. You attend an orientation session, which are virtual. You can do it from your own home. And then you decide if you want to join CERT. And we'll then, after you've taken that, you hit that other hurdle, then you can receive all the registration emails on when the cycles are coming up. I think that was it from me, except one other thing, one requirement for the CERT program is that you'll have to pass a background check because you'll be working with the public. So there's several documents that we have you fill out, background check form, code of conduct, and disclaimer, and then a copy of your driver's license. And we do a background check. As long as you pass, then you can pass on to the next step.
Okay.
I think the only other thing is other programs. We have CERT, and then we have community preparedness. They do a strengthening communities program, which basically it works with a lot of different community organizations, and it's a way for them to get grants to work on their community preparedness plan. So that's another great program we have. And Ready New York is where we get all of our literature from on how to prepare, We have guides for all kinds of emergencies, heat emergencies, everything. So hopefully you guys will join.
Thank you. Actually, before you step off, does anyone have any questions for Denise about OEM? And then, Peter, we're going to let you share any experience you may have. Patrick, please use the mic just because people watching.
So my question was, what kind of legal rights would they have for crowd management and traffic control? And on the same kind of question is, what kind of protection do they have if they hit an unruly crowd? You're not in charge of us, that kind of situation?
Two things on that. One is that they are, number one, trained by the NYPD. So the NYPD, the rights that they have is they're getting it right from the NYPD. They're telling them what they can and can't do. And the second thing is that they'll be there with the NYPD. So when they go out and do traffic management, we're not really sending them out on their own. They're going to be where other first responders are. Yeah.
Does anyone else have a question for Denise? And then Denise, so for next steps, I know we were talking with Anthony from your office. What we're trying to do, and why you've seen some of our flyers up, is we're trying to get 30 people going at roughly about the same time, so we could do like a CERT City Island team. We're at about, up till today, we're about 15. I did see 5 people signed up in the last week, so thank you for that. We've got to, the important thing is we've got to get 30 people at the same time. And that's what's really led to some of the logistical stuff, but more hurdles, if you will. But if you can, everybody, it's bit.ly, bit.ly/CIR, all capital C, ERT, CERT. If you put that in, it'll take you right to the thing, to our web form. Also, you can just go to our social media sites or cityislandrising.org. And if you signed up with your email, which is why we ask everyone to sign in, we will e-blast it out at the end of this because we do really want to get 30 people together because we do see value in a CERT team, particularly as we're a Zone 1 area. Sir, here.
So one more question. Just to be clear, last night there was some stuff that happened in Brooklyn, and the police were involved. I think it was last night with Palestinian and the Israeli protesters. So was that something that you deploy on, or is that not? Okay, just disaster related? Okay,
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else before we let Denise sit down? Okay, thank you very much. Peter, do you want to, by the way, Peter Del W?
One more thing,
Sure.
sorry. This is the Notify NYC app, and this is a great way for you to find out all different types of alerts that are happening throughout the city. So if you don't have this app, you really should get it. Notify NYC.
Absolutely, and you can also get the detonations from Rodman's Neck. You can sign up for that. Transportation things, and they do tell you now when we're anticipating high tides here. So also something very important. Peter, who beyond being a CERT person is also the commanding officer or commander of the American Legion Post. Do you want to share anything about your experience with CERT, Peter?
Thank you. I have to be very careful. My boss is in the room. All I'd like to say or add to what Ms. Esposito said eloquently, I'm a member of CERT Team 10. Our office is located, and where we meet is located in Co-op City on Donzetti Place, in the lobby of one of the buildings there. I am also part of the next step, as she spoke about. The next step is we're in Division 4. So number 4, which constitutes Bronx 10 and Bronx 11. So Community Boards 10 and 11 constitute Division 4. I have worked with my own CERT team up there in Co-op City. I have attended the citywide disaster drill located with the fire department on the fire department academy training. I've personally worked for the city for a total of 24 years. I did 8 in the police department and 16 here in sanitation, and never have I experienced the quality of training that I had in CERT. You know, it was that intensive and that good, and I took away better understanding things that we just kind of stumbled through and figured, well, I guess this is right, or this is a good thing to do. I actually got training on it 26 years later. So it's definitely a worthwhile cause. And for here in our community, we've talked to our team. God forbid something happens at City Island, we're going to go to the Legion Post. The post is located at 550 City Island Avenue, and the advantage of that location is it's on higher ground, so it doesn't get flooded as much. So if there is a crisis, we're going to open up our post to the CERT team. We've also established that with the police department also. So they know that they can have that as usable space to coordinate any type of disaster that happens on City Island. So that's all I have. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Esposito. And I did get permission to count tonight. So that's when we talk about not self-deploying. I wouldn't even come here without asking permission first.
There we go.
So there we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Let's give Peter and Denise a round of applause. And then I apologize, I didn't get your name on here, but we do have a representative from FEMA, so we want to give him an opportunity to speak as well. So let's pretend we know what his name is and give him a round of applause, and he'll introduce himself when he gets up here.
Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. So my name is Race. It's spelled like R-A-C-E, like run race. My last name is Hodges, and I'm passing out a flyer just that I brought so you can hear a little bit about what I can offer to City Island Rising and maybe a potential COAD, potential CERT team. So I'm FEMA's faith-based preparedness coordinator. I live here in New York, so I spend a lot of time in my backyard. But I have a really great job with FEMA, and I work with houses of worship and communities of faith to support whatever types of emergency and disaster preparedness needs they may have. So if any of you are affiliated with a house of worship here in City Island or a part of a community of faith, I would love it if you would pass the flyer to your clergy member and just let them know about this resource that FEMA has. As it relates to this meeting tonight, I met with John and Amjad, great partner, and have been working very closely with different community organizations in the Bronx to support a variety of different disaster preparedness needs. So as that flyer is sort of coming and making its way around, I just wanted to share a few things that we've been able to do, because it may give you some ideas for ways that we can partner, FEMA can partner with you in the preparedness space. So I know everyone remembers the large-scale apartment fire that occurred in the Bronx in January of last year. Seems like a really long time ago, but it was just last year. You may remember that a lot of the casualties from that apartment fire occurred for New Gambian immigrants, which is a small West African country, the majority of which are Muslim. After that event, there was an imam in the Bronx that contacted our office and asked us to come out and do a first aid emergency preparedness class for the congregation. So I went out and we did this class for about 70 members of that mosque to give them basic information about how to save someone's life during a emergency. And those are the types of classes that we can teach. So if you're part of a community organization, if you're part of a house of worship, that's something that we can do totally free. We can come out and we can do that class for either the staff of that house of worship, of that community organization, or for the clients or members of the congregation. Another workshop that we've done very recently, I was in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands over the summer, and we did a climate change workshop for clergy in St. Croix. So I know not a lot of organizations are doing or facilitating conversations and trainings and workshops about climate change and climate adaptation, both talking about the science and supporting organizations with developing plans that are practical within their span of control to prepare for the impending effects, the current effects of climate change in our communities. If that's something that City Island Rising or your community organization would like to participate in, we can absolutely help facilitate that. I also do a lot of work with youth. Many houses of worship have active either youth ministries or youth programs. So just last Friday night in the Bronx at the East Bronx COAD, which is hosted by a Pentecostal church called Life Together Works. I went out there and taught a CPR class and a Stop the Bleed class for their high schoolers. We had a great time. A lot of hands-on fun activities for about 30 members of their youth group. So if there are youth groups that maybe you're affiliated with, either at your house of worship, maybe you're a teacher and educator, we do that a lot. So youth programs are another big priority for FEMA, and especially with communities of faith that I work in. The Saturday before last, we were in Brooklyn, and we did a security training workshop for houses of worship. So that's another type of thing that we do. On Tuesday night last week, I was up in White Plains, New York, and we facilitated a tabletop exercise for 5 synagogues. Along with the FBI, we had our partners at the FBI come out, the local police, and if you're not familiar with the tabletop exercise, basically we develop scenarios, and we facilitate this scenario where we walk teams through different disaster-related scenarios. So we talked about an active shooter event, and we also talked about a suspicious vehicle incident. And we're game planning and giving different scenarios, and everyone's talking about what they would do. And then we would fast forward like an hour later, change the scenario a little bit, and everyone would be talking about what they would be doing. And they're learning from the police, they're learning from their fellow members of their organization, and that may be something that City Island is interested in. We did it, my example was for an active shooter and a suspicious vehicle, but maybe we could do something related to a hurricane, or building collapse, or something like that. What would you be doing in this particular scenario? I understand that many of you may have been here when Sandy hit. What if it was 10 times worse? We could walk you through a scenario of what that looks like, and that helps illuminate maybe gaps in our planning or informs ways that we can strengthen our preparedness as a community. So that may be something you're interested in. Then another recent workshop that we did in New York. So I'm sure, just like the Bronx apartment fire, many of you also probably remember the tragedy that occurred in Buffalo in May of last year with the Top supermarket shooting. That was a racially motivated hate crime attack, and there was a pastor there of a predominantly Black and African American church that reached out to our office and asked us to organize a workshop to teach local community organizations how to write an emergency operations plan. So I flew up to Buffalo, we did that workshop, and another example of a training we could do right here in City Island. Planning is really the foundation for preparedness. And if you're a part of an organization, if you're part of a house of worship, we can help you write that plan and give you tips and advice for planning. When FEMA's not responding to disasters, we're planning in many cases. I was just looking at our national situation report. We're currently operating in 84 disasters around the country. Many people just are unaware of that, and we're operating behind the scenes. But we're also planning and working with our state partners, our city partners, to manage grant funding. We provide a lot of grants that pay for things like ladder trucks and fire trucks, things of that nature. We fund large-scale flood mitigation projects working with our city and state partners. So a lot of things behind the scenes. But what I do is I teach preparedness classes. So if anybody is interested in anything that I said, I'd love to discuss potential partnerships with you. On the back of the flyer, there's a list of the types of trainings that we do provide. I think I mentioned most of them. The most popular one is our Stop the Bleed class. Everything we do is free, by the way. We just need a space to teach it. Maybe something like this, but typically I like to have tables and I do like to use a few slides. So if there's a space like that here in City Island, you can totally organize that. The trainings are about 3 hours. Ideal audience is about 20 to 40 people. But we can do Stop the Bleed. We can do how to write an emergency plan. We can do that tabletop exercise. I'm also very sincere when I say that if there's not a training that you can find someone to teach, I'd love to talk with you about that, because maybe we can design something that is exactly what you're looking for. So if there's a gap, I'm very interested in trying to fill that gap. I send that invitation to all of you. My contact information is on the back of this flyer. Again, I'm based here in New York City, and I would look forward to partnering with City Island Rising and maybe a potential COAD in the future. So, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? I know this gentleman. No, you didn't have any? Okay, so we'll go Stephen, and then we'll go Denise. Stephen.
Two things that just came to my mind. Have you ever given any thought to a workshop or a thing that we don't like to think about, but in the event the bridge leaving City Island is destroyed in one way or another, by accident, however it happens, and there's no access on or off. Another thing might be in the event of, because of the flooding problem, what we should expect as a community and what we should be doing. So perhaps having a workshop in those two particular areas, it might make us more aware of what we should do, what we can't do, what to expect. And because I really don't know what to do, you know, if a disaster like that would happen. So I think if someone like yourself would let us know, I think it might be a good thing for all of us.
Certainly. I think both of those two ideas are excellent. We could definitely, convene a workshop working with our city and other federal, state, city, local government partners to talk about that, integrate that into flood preparedness messaging, because I think both of those are concerns. For you, clearly you just voiced them, and having a focused conversation about that can help foster preparedness. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great. Denise?
Yeah, you had mentioned the security planning that you do with the faith-based organizations, right? What exactly is involved in that?
Yeah, so there's two sorts of tracks under that. We do that how to write an emergency operation plan workshop where we walk step by step for considerations when writing a plan. And the other thing that we did in Brooklyn was a combination. We worked with our some of my colleagues at the Department of Homeland Security, and we did things like how to de-escalate situations. So if someone walks into your business or a place and they're acting a little hostile, we actually did role play and shared best practices with how to lower the temperature and de-escalate those situations. Very, very useful skill set. We also taught them how to manage severe bleeding control. I brought some of my tourniquets and talked about wound packing and how to save someone's life during a severe bleeding event. Some other things that we did were common security-related vulnerabilities for buildings. So one thing that the Department of Homeland Security does and that FEMA does is administer a nonprofit security grant, which is designed to enhance security measures for nonprofits. And that allows us to really see a lot of interesting buildings around the country. And there's very common security concerns that we see. Things like poor lighting, really doors and windows that lack structural integrity, can easily be broken and entered. So we can highlight some of those concerns that we see and talk about replacement ideas and then funding mechanisms to enhance that security. So we talked about that as well.
Okay. Thank you. Oh, Lois, go ahead. Sorry. Lois, then Patrick. When she's done, you ask your question right away. Okay. There we go.
So, before COVID, I was lucky to attend a workshop. Maybe it was a workshop, maybe it was just a presentation from all the emergency organizations in New York City, plus FEMA, plus even Woods Hole was involved in this. And they had a map of New York City, and the map showed in red all the vulnerable areas. Well, attending that really scared the hell out of me, because there was City Island totally red as a vulnerable area. So part of the issue is awareness. We are in a very vulnerable area, particularly with one access off the island, and we know what happens when you have too many cars trying to get off the island. Yep. So I was amazed also that they weren't talking about City Island as one of the focus areas, priority areas. It was mostly Lower Manhattan, of course, and other areas in the Bronx, Broad's Neck, and other areas where it's low, where there's a huge risk for weather-related emergencies. So I think part of it is getting the community aware that we are in this situation, but there are ways we can prepare. So I think number one is getting everybody aware of the fact that City Island is very vulnerable.
I couldn't agree any more with what you just said. Awareness is so important. And the truth is, the emergency management community, NYC, FEMA, we need your help. We need the help of CERT teams. We need the help from community leaders such as yourselves. with raising that awareness and talking about those preparedness best practice tips. So that's something that all of the speakers that we've heard from tonight can support the people in this room with being ambassadors for preparedness here in City Island. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick, yes sir. Last but not least.
That's right. It's tough to be on the back here.
We'll be more mindful, I'm sorry. I'm not front, no. You should come up front. Yeah, absolutely.
So the issue is this, as said by a couple of people, we are all very familiar on this island about the problems with traffic coming in and going off the island. And let's say there's a little traffic stop just going off the island. The traffic backs up, full stop period, bumper to bumper. So now imagine if you've got a disaster and you've got 5,000 people who want to get off the island and they don't own a boat, right? And that wouldn't solve the problem either. But it's on our minds, at least the people I talk to about it, we are worried about it very much, just in case. We would have no idea how to play that game.
Right.
Thank you. I think just again another reason why we're here today to help foster this preparedness dialogue in City Island. That's another hand.
So if I could tag on to some of what's being said, for me, all those things are in play and something I need to pay attention to. And the one that I actually fear most is the simplest one of losing electricity during a storm or during a cold snap, and what that would then things would come as a result of that, like frozen pipes or not being able to use your medical electronic devices, whatever. Losing electricity, I think. During these heavy storms, a lot of us are on pumps. We're running pumps to keep our basements from flooding. So that's the biggest fear that I have. That's the simplest one, So do you do anything? Does anybody in these programs have any program that addresses that issue in any way?
So I think your question, I think it immediately raised in my mind this idea of just fostering those conversations. Having those maybe scenario-based discussions. If power goes out and for some reason we aren't able to restore that power in for a week, what does that look like? What does that suggest we should be doing maybe today to prepare for things like that? That can help illuminate conversations and maybe results in people getting more prepared. So.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah,
I just wanted to sort of address that too. I live in Breezy Point, which during Sandy, we all had to move out.
Yep.
So the big thing is, in red areas, you get evacuated. I mean, you have to leave. And that's the biggest thing. And what you go back to is then the city starts coming in and having programs. They had, what was the name of the program they did? It was like rapid repair, build back. So they did programs, they tried pilot programs to try to help bring in, boilers, bring in plumbers, bring in electricians, and try to help you. Biggest thing in those communities is you can't have anything in the basement. You have to make sure you bring it all up, and everything is out of the base flood elevation. So I think that's the biggest thing is there isn't programs to help that if you're going to stay. You have to leave. If you're on City Island and there's impending, like a storm coming, and they know it's going to be bad, they're going to have you leave.
So I just want to come back to that point, because what I'm envisioning as the scenario that would cause me the most problem would be in between. Like a couple weeks ago we had a storm that was not predicted, and it poured, and our basements started to flood. So it's one of those where we wouldn't be evacuated, I don't think.
Yeah, so I know that we do.
We're not evacuated.
Right. I know there are some flooding mitigation things that we're working on with the city. We did have some flood barriers that people can put up against their, they fill it with water, it goes up against the house, and it can keep the water kind of at bay. That was helpful. We have some flood alarms that were given out as well, which is like a probe that sits it down on the ground, and if water is going to start to come, at least you know about it as soon as possible, so you can go down and lift everything up off the floor. But there's not too much you can do when the water is going to come.
What about backup power?
Yeah.
So,
That's what I'm going with.
Yeah.
So you raised some very good points. So a few things that we're trying to work on as a group has been one, the power lines. We're one of the few communities with power lines up above ground. We've been speaking to our federal elected officials to try to pressure Con Edison to put the utility lines underground, so I hear you there. I mean, we can look into, and I don't know what it would be for a small community in the city, but other communities are experimenting with micro grants. I believe Red Hook did something like that. I don't know all the particulars. I'm just throwing out ideas because you raised a real problem and you deserve some level of a real solution. But let's have an offline conversation because we should. That's a very serious problem, and I have a loved one who sometimes needs oxygen. Right. And for that reason, utilities, that is a very serious concern of mine as well. So. Great question. I don't have a great answer, but we'll work on getting a great answer. And then Amjad, go ahead.
I just want to say briefly that with the power situation, one of the reasons why COADs are so valuable is for these type of conversations and bringing in those experts to help us find solutions that fit your community. For example, we have now new technology, emergency preparedness with solar power generators, right? That's one option. We have the new jacks to help us to charge our batteries in terms of our cars and everything. They're very portable. A lot of the new technology is more user-friendly than ever before. So these are the conversations we can start having and to find what works best for you. You mentioned oxygen. Working with the local hospitals, right, in Montefiore, Einstein, find out do they have a program for emergency situations for oxygen deliveries for those who need it and who are homebound, right? And setting up that relationship. That's some of the things that COADs can do and have done. When it comes to communications, it was mentioned earlier, via buddy. We also have some similar to it called wellness checks, right? Where we learn about our neighborhood, make new friendships, new relationships, strengthen old relationships, check up on each other, right? In the churches, in the mosques, you did that. You went to the hospital when someone in the congregation was sick, you brought them a wellness gift. You prayed with them, whatever it took, right? The COAD, same thing, okay? But we focus on the education and the health and wellness of the community, the individual, the family, and overall. So there's a lot of different opportunities to address those concerns where we can bring not only city agencies, but outside emergency experts to help us prepare better. And we want to work not in fear, but in knowing. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Amjad. So we have one more. I'm sorry, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to get you, sir.
Yes, sir.
I don't want to get so dark here, and I don't want to be so elaborate about it. But you mentioned in your talk that the Bronx is the most vulnerable, has more kind of, this is my interpretation, more elements of vulnerability to spread it out. We're talking here about water to begin with, but all sorts of other things. What I was, in a brief way, could you say why Bronx?
So, okay, thank you for that question. On the presentation itself, you'll see the little icon that says #MAP62. Okay, that refers to a statewide program where they do a survey and a study to find out the health and wellness of the different counties in the state of New York. And out of 52 counties of the state of New York, the Bronx ranks 52 with the worst health and wellness disparities. Wow. And that's been an ongoing problem for years. Meaning, yes, so, for instance, diabetes, high blood pressure, infant mortality, breast cancer, right? A variety of these things directly affect us on multiple levels, which in the presentation, it goes into when you read it. My contact email is there too. I have business cards if you want to ask questions or have me back with, and I can bring other health professionals and experts to talk about these different health and wellness concerns you may have. So the COAD from the health department's perspective is that we work on the health issues, right? So that we can have sustainability and improve our conditions in the community, Okay?
So that's not localized, it's like,
Well, that's why we're having this very good point, but that's also why we're having this meeting. And in terms of the investment that the city's going to make, I mean, you've got 3 city agencies and FEMA here. So, this is about building those, all your criticism, very well done. It's about building those partnerships as we go forward. And I think that's why we have a very good turnout tonight, is because people understand what's happening. And again, there'll be more people watching online, and this is another reason why everybody just please make sure you sign in, because we want to make sure we're going to have a separate break-off with a group email after this so people can share their ideas and we can get better organized. Because I know we had about 25 people, some who are here, some who are not here, who have already signed up for the CERT, and we want to start building that group into something bigger. So without further ado, our last group speakers of the evening are colleagues of mine from Health and Hospitals Jacobi, and we have Janice Holleran and Carrie Schulman, who handle all of our emergency preparedness stuff at the hospital, so I know they're very knowledgeable about this. So if you guys want to come on up and give them a round of applause, please. And I don't think I'm giving out too much personal information, but Janice is also a City Island resident, so point of personal pride.
I am a muscle sucker.
That's me too.
Don't worry. I'm playing a Bronx girl.
There we go.
Born and bred, yes. So John is correct. I'm the Associate Executive Director for all clinical operations at Jacobi Medical Center. I've run the emergency department for over 30 years. But in doing that, I've also been the chairman of emergency preparedness. Carrie is the EP coordinator. And we do this for both Jacobi and North Central Bronx Hospital. And so John did a good job tonight, right? He brought in the right agencies to start getting this ball rolling. We as a hospital work with these agencies all the time, not just in disaster events. But one of the things Jacobi specifically has developed, and we did this a month after September 11th, we created something called the Bronx Emergency Preparedness Coalition. And that was the first time that public and private agencies came together and worked together and figured out how to sustain the Bronx, because we felt during that time, ground zero is where everybody went, right? And all the efforts needed to go down there. And so we were kind of just left aside for a little bit after September 11th, right? What were we doing while all this was happening? And so we realized that in the event of some kind of catastrophic event, we would have to form some kind of mobilization, and our mobilization started out as the Bronx Alliance and then grew into the Bronx Emergency Preparedness Coalition. And we are the first coalition of that type to ever come together. And much to my colleagues' chagrin, the Department of Health and FEMA and CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, and Joint Commission all said, you know what? Every borough needs a coalition. So the BEPC was the one who started all this, and then all my colleagues said, gee, thanks, because then they had to turn around and figure out how to create coalitions in every single borough. But we are the longest standing coalition, and we are the only coalition that is an active and reactive coalition. So we're the only one that will respond as a group during a disaster event. And that's unheard of, to have folks like Jacobi Medical Center and Montefiore and Einstein and St. Barnabas and EMS and NYPD actually gather together and create a unified front for whatever disaster is happening. I also want to say that we are responsible for all of the training that goes on in the hospital. We actually had CERT come and train the community. We put it out there several years back. We put a flyer out and said, have them come up and have the community come out and train. They did fabulous training for the community members that showed up at Jacobi. And they got their go bag that day after they took that, it was maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour training. And then they got the information to take other trainings as well. But we do all the disaster preparedness training for the hospital. So we do stop the bleed training. We are the first hospital to create the active shooter hands-on training module. Most hospitals back in the day, did not want to train for active shooter because it's a very difficult training module to actually conduct. And so, yes, of course, we did the tabletop stuff. And then we decided that it wasn't enough, and we created the hands-on module, which we do now. And what that happened, if you ever wanted to take that training as a community, we certainly would offer that to you guys. And it's about a 2.5-hour training, and we teach you the run, hide, fight module, but we do it so that you must do it, right? If you're going to take that training, you can't come and sit down for it and watch everybody else. You have to actually run, because running for your life and running for health are two very different things. You learn how to hide when you have no way to barricade. You learn how to hide when you do have a way to barricade. And then you learn how to counter. And so it's a module that we taught the entire Health and Hospital Corporation how to do because nobody else wanted to. So we did it for them. And now we've had many of the private hospitals come and send their emergency preparedness leaders and their hospital police officers to come and train with us for that. But we do all layers of these kinds of training. And so I guess the point of us being here is that we're the folks that are in your backyard, right? We're the folks that do this every single day. And we're the hospital, your closest hospital, your level 1 trauma center, which is in crisis most times, right? By today, we had our command center open because the emergency department at Jacobi has 157 patients in it, and 57 of them are admitted patients, and they're living in the ER. And so we want to figure out how to get them out, right? So you have to get the crews together. You got to get those docs, and you got to wind them up, and let's do our discharge planning if it's safe and all that kind of stuff. So that's who we are. We're right here in your backyard, and we are the ones that are running to every disaster. So when the boat explodes down at the gas dock, and when folks have a boat emergency, or when somebody in the area is going into cardiac arrest, we're the hospital they're coming to, and our job is to make sure that we're ready for you at all times. Catherine, I want you to say this.
So I think what's kind of lucky and not lucky about being Jacobi Medical Center and being level 1 trauma is that we get a lot of practice. And so when there is a mass casualty incident, we've been through it, we've done it, we've practiced, we've drilled, we've written reports at the end to say what went well, what could have gone better. And so we're always improving our processes, and we want you to feel confident that we've got you. The other thing is that during an emergency, because we're NYC Health Hospitals, which is our city hospital system, we partner with NYSUM, and we do have medical need shelters that are designed to open up for people who maybe they lost power and they do need an oxygen hookup, or people who are being evacuated from their homes who don't have any place to go, that can't go to a regular shelter because they're unable to do stairs. There are medical need shelters that Health and Hospitals partners with the city to make sure that those vulnerable populations, medical vulnerabilities, are taken care of. So it's just, we want the part of the BEPC, the coalition, is just to have the community know that we are communicating with one another. And so in these emergencies, we do have contacts at all of those hospitals. If people are separated, we have people we can talk to figure out where people ended up going. But just to know that we are doing this work in the background, and that we're working to make sure that you all have the support that you need in the case of emergency.
So I would say your first steps are, if we could do an impromptu meeting, we would set up a BEPC meeting and invite you all to it if you're interested. As a first step, I think the COAD model, is probably the right way to go, right, for the community, because I think it brings everybody together and gives us a common voice about what we want to do for our space. Listen, I'm an emergency preparedness expert, and I live on City Island, right? Within reason. So it's probably not the smartest thing in the world, but you know what? We like to live on the edge, so sure, that's what we do. So, but I would say that the COAD piece of it is probably an extremely important thing to start really considering. The CERT program, excellent. If you are up for that challenge, please do it, because it's incredible, right? And it gives you so much breadth of knowledge that you may not have had before. Sure, we've all lived through some stuff, but when you take these kinds of trainings, you get a different level, right? Your approach to things will change. How you see everything will change, right? When I started teaching active shooter preparedness, what changed about me is situational awareness, right? So I know when I walk into a room what everybody's doing, who wants to be there, who doesn't want to be there, who thinks this is boring, who wants to get out, and who really wants to do this. Like, I know it. right? Because I'm very situationally aware. Some people, like my husband, will tell me that I am paranoid, but at the end of the day, I will survive that event, right? So what I mean is when you take these trainings, it changes the way you see things, and your approach becomes completely different. And then the downstream effect to that is that you then bring that to your loved ones, right? Because you teach them how to do that kind of stuff, whether they want to or not. So I think, again, the COAD and the CERT, VEPC, which you should know exists and extremely important in your community. And then obviously FEMA is, you know, Ray's here, who's my favorite person now, right? Because I love that we sat here as colleagues for a second. You know, listen, he's offering trainings. If we don't take advantage of that, we're silly, right? Because it's only going to make us stronger and better. It's not going to do anything detrimental to us, right? So we really should consider this kind of stuff. I thank you, John, for inviting me to come here tonight, and I hope we have the chance to actually flesh some of this stuff out, because it can be done. It's going to take a little work, and that can be daunting, but if you're in it, it's really rewarding. Thank you.
Just one. Did anyone have any questions for Janice or Carrie before we hold on? Patrick, hold on, you're going to get the microphone.
You're going to get to go first, though, this time, I promise. I've learned my lesson.
Okay, one thing that I love your hospital. I mean, who doesn't love Jacobi? But one thing,
there are people.
I wish it was easier to get to from City Island. We have to go through a whole big loop. But one thing that is special about your hospital is that you are pediatric emergency medicine as well, and I think you're the only one, right?
We are the only level 2 trauma. The only level 2 trauma. I am in charge of all clinical operations, so I run the trauma service as well as the emergency department, and radiology and respiratory pharmacy and all that kind of stuff. But it takes a lot of work to get there. To be a level 1 trauma center, to be a level 2 pediatric trauma center, it takes a lot of work to do that. And the American College of Surgeons is the only group that can certify you. And we go through that rigorous review every 3 years. So the fact that we can, 1, get that designation, and 2, sustain that designation, that's pretty remarkable.
Thank you, Janice, and thank you, Carrie. Amjad, I know you had one more thing you want to say?
Yes, one of the things I would also like to say is the value of a COAD was very instrumental coming out of COVID. One of the biggest problems we had in the Bronx is suicide. People, you felt abandoned, felt alone, did not know where to turn to, especially after losing half their family to the virus. And one of the things we try to do with COADs is to make that the connection, let people know you're not alone.
Not alone. Good.
And that there is services for you, counseling, therapy, all right, where you can get to help you to get through that crisis, whatever it may be, okay? There's crisis hotlines. There's suicide prevention for children, adults, okay, that we can connect you to those resources and have them come to speak and let you know what's available. And all this is free, okay? Right now, one of the first things you can do is a mental health first aid training, which is for everyone. You don't have to be an expert. Just know the signs when somebody's going through trouble and be a listening ear. Let them know you hear them, you see them, right? And we can get through this. So please think about this. The value of a COAD has many different applications that will benefit City Island moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Amjad. So I want to thank all of our guest speakers, because we really did get together some of the best people to address emergency management, from healthcare to community to everything else that falls under the sun here. So I did have a discussion here on next steps. I do want to be mindful that it's already 8:30, and I know that people gave up at already 90 minutes of their time. So there are a few ways we can go about doing this. If everybody wants to give out what they would like to see going forward, very quickly, please, 1 or 2 minutes, keep it brief. And then, obviously, we're recording this, so everyone will get a record of it. And then 2, we will email out some sort of a survey as well to see what things people are interested in. We'll do 2. We'll do 1 to this group, because everyone here cared enough to come out, and we've got a You've got to put a value on that. And then secondly, we'll blast it out to the community at large. So, does anyone have anything they'd like to share of what they like that they heard, that they think that could work for City Island?
I have one
Sir.
question for clarification. The CERT and the COAD programs they sound separate to me.
They are.
And you need to decide which one you want to pursue?
So we would like to pursue both. I think the COAD, we're going to start probably initially pursuing a little bit more only because we need to get to 30 people for CERT. But we have a drive for both, and actually we have some grant money, so we're going to be doing some online advertising on social media to build up our CERT numbers as well. I already have spoken to a few people who do that kind of digital advertising, so we're going to be doing it very heavily in 10464. And I do have a few people who haven't signed up yet, but they live either in Morris Park or Throgs Neck, so we might just bring them in and make them honorary City Islanders for the sake of doing this. Because if we can get the 30 people together, I don't think we're going to be checking passports at this event.
So can a person be a member of both?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, because we've got to clear stuff like that up, and everyone can be a member of both. Okay. Yes. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sure. I just wanted to piggyback on what a gentleman said. I'm sorry.
I'm Jack.
In the preparedness of emergency equipment that you pack in Puerto Rico and in some other places, they actually invite people to put in the bag card games, board games, stuff for entertainment, because mental health. And while I'm on it, I'm going to do a shameless plug. Please support us, entertainment workers, as we're still on strike. Thank you. Believe it or not, during COVID, it was costume designers that went to all the theaters on Broadway, got the scraps, sold the PPE, and delivered it to nurses and all the emergency personnel. So, yeah, give us a shout out and help us because we're so much
Thank you, Marlena. Does anyone else have anything they heard tonight that they think would be a good focus for City Island? Okay, think about it. I know we have Lois here. Lois, you had your hand up. Do you want to say something?
No.
Thank you.
I like the idea of finding out who's interested in what and organizing that way. But I also think we have to organize the island into doable zones with captains who can assess and map out our streets, where the vulnerable people, where are older people, where are people who are on oxygen. So there's an organizing piece to this that I think we have to address and divide up the island into areas where we have control over who our people are and what we have to do for them. Once we do that, we can look at the issues that people are interested in and work for each disaster a plan. You'd have to have separate plans. So I'm looking forward to getting a big map and dividing up the island into areas where we have captains or people who take a block or 2 blocks, and we start mapping out who's who and how do we contact them and set up a telephone tree, alert systems. So I'd like to see us organize.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Lois. Everyone, you get some applause back there too. Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with it. It could be your friends who thought you said something right. There's nothing wrong with that. But does anyone else have anything they would like to add before we close out? And we will, again, we have resources here. Everyone who came to speak, we will be in contact with. You all have the email for City on Rising. We can put you into contact with any of them. And we're going to have a subcommittee, which obviously Lois will be a part of, Janice. We want you to be a part of it. I know we have Nancy would like to be a part of it too, I think. I think I saw a hand raised. Thank you, Nancy. Beverly from our team, who couldn't make it tonight, she had to work. Thanks, Stephen. So we'll have a nice group together, and we'll have a subcommittee meeting, so we'd like you to be a part of it as well. And that way we can come up with a plan that we can present to you all. But tonight was about the different resources that are available, getting the ideas out there, the Be a Buddy system, the COAD, obviously, a lot of the different things we were talking about here, from traffic management to CERT cleanups and community cleanups when we need to do it. And just a shameless plug and a reminder, we still have so many supplies for the Adopt a Block, Adopt a Basin program. Thankfully, we're up to about, I think, 15 people now who have their materials. We have another 5 that are going to go online. We probably have another 10, so you can sign up on our website. What you get is actually what Denise spoke about a little bit. You get a broom, you get a dustpan, for lack of a better term. You get a trash picker. We'll even give you hedge trimmers. We have the weed whackers if necessary. We can only lend those out because we can't give them away because that's like $200. We have those. We have trash bags. We have gloves. So if you'd like to get involved with that, come see me afterwards. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add before we close for the evening? I want to thank everyone for coming out. I particularly want to thank Egypt Blanco over here, who lets us use his space free of charge. Thank you, Egypt. Everyone, please give her a round of applause. Thank you all. Get home safe.